We're doing a series of interviews for our audience, quite frankly, not for the candidates. And I know that some are saying, oh, the candidates are getting the benefit of this. No, really and truly, you, the audience, are getting the benefit of this because here at Viewpoints, we're asking the hard-hitting questions, such as, what is your favorite flower? Or better yet, who do you think is going to win the ACC tournament this year? That's a good one for our guest, Francis DeLuca, this afternoon, candidate, 3rd Congressional District. I do this with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek for several reasons. One, I've been talking to Francis now for, Francis, I've been talking to you since back when you were working for Americans for Prosperity. And then, of course, you took over the reins at the Civitas Institute. There's the CEO, but now candidate for 3rd Congressional District. And so it was a great deal of pleasure to welcome Francis DeLuca. Francis, good evening to you.
Good evening, Lockwood. Always good to be with you and your listeners.
Thank you very much. Shall we go with your favorite flower, or maybe who do you think is going to win the ACC tournament?
Yeah, don't ask. The ACC tournament question is much too divisive for me to answer.
All right. Well, let's talk about the issue of politics, and welcome to the program. Francis, I've talked to you now. When were you working with Americans for Prosperity? How far back was that?
I was there from in 2006 to about June of 2007.
Okay, and then from there you were with the Civitas Institute, and we were chatting regularly every Friday afternoon for about 2 years, as a matter of fact. So let's talk about your decision to run for Congress. Why? I'm impressed. I know that you've had some experience in Raleigh and state politics and, even national politics, but why running for the 3rd Congressional District?
Well, Lockwood, let me kind of say why the 3rd District, because that's my home. I grew up there. I was born there. I graduated high school. I lived there probably 2/3 of my life. I lived in the 3rd District. So it is home to me. Now, why run, though? That's the bigger question. Why run is we are in a very dangerous time in our country with things going on that shouldn't be happening, and these are very perilous times. And so I look around and I said, kind of, will I be able to look myself in the mirror a few years from now if I do not run? Because if things are not better, will I look in the mirror and go, these people are all messed up? I will have forfeited the right to complain about how things are because I was not willing to try and make a difference. And that's why I'm running, is because I feel like I can make a difference. Like I can go to Washington, and I'm not going there to make a career of it. In fact, I'm going to determine myself to probably 3 terms, 3 full terms, and no more, unless people send me home sooner. But it's not something I need to do. I'm very happy. I'm happily retired, but it's just we need people who go up there and do the right thing. And when I say the right thing, I mean we need to really look at the obvious issues that are hot right now. You've got immigration, an out-of-control border. Absolutely, we need to do something about that, and that could be fixed tomorrow. We just have a lack of will about elected officials, and that's what gets me most is the most responsible for that are the Republican elected officials. They could have fixed this.
Let's talk about this in relationship even and bring this out. Our conversations in years past related to the Civitas Institute, a nonpartisan organization, and you've held both parties accountable in various activities and challenged both parties and leadership in the past. In that regard, do you see that as one of your, if you will, one of your personality traits?
Well, I view it as a strength. I view it that if I go up there, I'm not going to be beholden to the party leadership in terms of what I do. I'm going to try and look at each issue, try and talk to people, but I'm going to vote my conscience on the issues. In many ways, probably not. I don't want to say I'd be like Walter Jones because no one's going to be like Walter Jones, but I think his independence was of value to the district. I will, my work will be to make things better for the district, but to make sure that first and foremost, the most important thing is what's good for the country as a whole. Because even though I'm representing the 3rd District, the votes I take affect everyone in the country.
Okay, one of the issues related to Congressman Jones, of course, he was not a fan of the current administration, voted against a lot of the initiatives by President Trump. Your opinion about those initiatives by President Trump? Let's take the wall. Let's take the issue of, his relationship with Syria. That is the president's relationship with Syria. The efforts in North Korea. Very quickly, how do you rate those as support or non-support?
Yeah, I'd say for the most part on policy, Donald Trump's been a pretty good president. I mean, anybody who would say differently is just obviously philosophically opposed to the things he's done. It's not a question of were they good or bad. Now, would people have done them differently? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, he's getting things done. We have never had this relationship with North Korea under any president.
Right.
But things are actually seem to be going better. Now, tomorrow they may not be going so good, but right now they're going better than they've gone in 20-plus years. And we've had both Republicans and Democrats, huff and puff, and then Korea goes right on developing nuclear weapons. So right. Donald Trump did something different successfully. He has actually tried to hold China accountable for the stuff they're doing. Mm-hmm. No president in modern times since Reagan has really held the other major powers accountable for what they're doing.
All right. Francis DeLuca with us this evening, of course, candidate for 3rd Congressional District, and of course, again, a voice you've heard many times before here on the program. Francis, let's look at this in relationship to the 3rd Congressional District. But before I do that, I have not given you fair time to tell us who Francis DeLuca is and your experience. You're I have to be careful. You're a Marine, retired. So let's hear who Francis DeLuca is.
Well, I've already said I was born in Jacksonville. I grew up in Jacksonville, graduated from Jacksonville High School. I always like to say go Cardinals. Went to UNC Wilmington, went in the Marine Corps. I went to flight school, flew helicopters in the Marine Corps, and I went to the reserves after my initial tour. I flew helicopters for over 16 years in the Marine Corps, including a combat tour in the first Gulf War. I was awarded an Air Medal for that. I'm proud of my service there. After I stopped flying, I always like to say, I started flying a desk in the Marine Corps.
Right.
And I continued to do reserve duty until, 2001. I got called back to active duty. And then I spent 5 years on active duty in Camp Lejeune. I was stationed in New River on active duty. Got called back to active duty, did 5 more years of active duty, stationed at Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville. Got deployed again over to OIF, to Operation Iraqi Freedom. Mm-hmm. Came finally in about 2006. I'd done a lot of active duty. I'd been away from home a lot. It was time, and I'd traveled a lot. It was time to say, I've done enough, someone else can. Also, by that time, I was a senior colonel. The fact is, in the military, anybody who knows anything about military, colonels are not really too useful. We don't do a lot of work. We sit at a desk, right. And probably there's a lot of enlisted troops going, amen, listen to what he said.
Right. All right.
You have to have them. And so I went ahead and left active duty, and I retired completely from the Marine Corps in 2011. And so after that, though, after 2006, I went to Raleigh, where I headed up Americans for Prosperity for a year. Mm-hmm. And I traveled around the state. And then I left Americans for Prosperity to go over to Civitas and took over Civitas and spent a decade at Civitas, which was probably, I got to say, in terms of public policy, the funnest time I've had. And I had done other things. I did a direct mail business where I helped people help commercial and political clients do direct mail. And then running Civitas for 10 years, we were the premier conservative organization in North Carolina. We pushed the agenda in terms of policy. Mm-hmm. I can say without fear of retribution, or there is retribution, but of people disagreeing, that without the work Civitas did, we probably would not have the tax cuts we have in North Carolina.
Right.
The voter ID law we had before the First Circuit overturned it. A lot of the work went into that from Civitas. A lot of problems we pointed out. Many things that happened in the legislature happened because Civitas did the intellectual work and the groundwork to try and get things changed. We've done a lot of work in immigration area. We've done a lot of work in the regulation area, and that's the kind of work that I want to continue doing as a congressman, except at the national level. If the nation was doing what North Carolina has done in the last couple of years, we'd be in even better shape than we are now.
Let's talk here very quickly. We've got just a few minutes left. And by the way, I want to make mention of this. I shared this with the audience just as the program began. The voter ID initiative will not be available in the upcoming primaries because of lack of time to put all the necessary requirements in place. I just thought I'd make mention of that. And I said that this is a topic that you have dealt with in your past history there with the Civitas Institute. And of course, Francis DeLuca with us this afternoon. So Francis, just share that bit of information with you. Let's look here for the moment at the 3rd Congressional District, and particularly your experience in the military. What do you see are the issues that you're going to focus on as a candidate and, if all goes well, as the congressional representative for this district?
Well, as a candidate, you talk about a lot of the issues people want to actually hear. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you from having been out there already, I can tell you there's 2 issues among the Republican primary group, and these are the people who will be voting. And there's a lot of angst over the way things are going, just kind of a very unsettled. That's why I said these times we're in, because people are very worried about these times. They also, immigration is huge. People are worried about immigration. The fact that some people would say, that there's no crisis at the border and that the president should be doing what he's doing, they're already saying that in the first 6 months of this year, the Wall Street Journal, there's going to be more people cross the border than crossed the border in all of last year.
Right.
I don't know what you call that other than a crisis. The other thing is, people are very unhappy that, especially Republicans in this case, are not supporting the president in a way that they feel like they should. And we should support the president where we can support him. We should, if we disagree with him, we probably should disagree in private, not in public. We should, because that undermines them. But, that is, I hear that a lot. And one of the things I want to say about the president, and I truly believe this, and, you kind of, people laugh, and, but I think, that God put Donald Trump where he is for a reason. I don't know God's reasoning and everything, but, God often calls people who are imperfect to do a job that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I believe that that's why Donald Trump's there, and we ought to take advantage of him there to get some of the things accomplished that we need accomplished.
Our guest this afternoon, Francis DeLuca. And by the way, Francis, anyone interested in getting more information on you, website, do you have one at this point? I know it's early on.
It's being built out, so there's 2 things they can do.
Mm-hmm.
They can go to Twitter or Facebook, and they can go to @FXDeLuca. That's Foxtrot X-Ray, Delta Echo Lima Uniform Charlie Alpha. That's for all the military out there. And so they can find the website there, or they can just go to www.ColonelDeLuca, DELUCA, for Congress.com. Colonel DeLuca for Congress.
And then as we wrap it up with you, obviously it's just beginning as far as the campaign is concerned. But Francis, you've been sort of giving hints that you were looking for this job. You were looking to do this job anyhow. When did you finally decide that now is the time?
Well, I'd actually thought about doing it in 2020. I had talked to Walter Jones to let him know I was considering it, because I didn't want him to think, if he heard that I was out there talking to people, that I was thinking of trying to challenge him in 2020. Mm-hmm. If he had retired, I was going to run for the seat in 2020. But everybody knows what's happened. And at the time, he told me, I've known Walter for 30-plus years, that Francis, he gave me some advice about what to do. He said, but I won't be endorsing anybody. He goes, I think that you have to earn the seat yourself.
Right.
I'm not going to endorse anybody. And he said, but good luck. And, that's all you could ask for. And 2 things about Walter Jones. He was a gentleman and he was a gentleman. Right. And so, at the end of the day, replacing him, if I happen to get called that at the end of my time, I'll be very happy. That would be an accomplishment. But the main thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up there and do what I think is the right thing. Because, again, I keep saying, in these troubled times, you've got to have someone who's going to do the right thing.
Francis DeLuca with us. Francis, as always, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate that. I'm going to chat with you briefly off air, but look forward to further conversations. Congratulations and best wishes in this endeavor. Francis DeLuca, again, formerly of the Civitas Institute. The voice in the name sounds familiar. Voice sounds a little hoarse here. I think he's been on the hustings for the past couple of days. But yes, it's the same Francis DeLuca, formerly of the Civitas Institute. Francis, thanks for being with us. And this is Viewpoints on the Talk Station, FM 107, AM 1240.